And one. Well, hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I am so excited to be hanging out with somebody here that is going to give us a glimpse into the way that they started their business and jumped out of corporate and into the world of being an entrepreneur. So if that's something that you're interested in, you're going to want to listen today because we got some great stuff to unpack here. I'm honored to be hanging out with Jeff Binkert. How are you today, my friend?
Dave and Melinda, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're the owner operator of the company called House of Harley Davidson. So what is the House of Harley Davidson for anyone that doesn't know?
Well, first of all, it's your motorcycle dealership, and second of
Yep.
all, we're the largest dealership in Wisconsin for Harley Davidson brand, located in Greenfield, about 10 minutes from the Harley Davidson Museum, and we basically handle the downtown and surrounding area territory. We have a giant service department and a big sales and clothing department as well, and we're we're serving the community for since 1972.
Wow,
So we
that's
just
awesome.
had our 50th anniversary. I was 1 years
Wow.
old when that store opened.
So you haven't had it the whole time. We're going to jump into that. You're also involved with something that you call the Gratitude Foundation. So I love that. We want to unpack that today. I want to start with you, Jeff. You came from corporate America and you jumped into owning your own business. And again, there's a ton of people around the world that listen to this that's really like appealing to them. And so my first question to you was like, was early on, or when did you kind of know that corporate America wasn't really for you? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think, and great question. I think it dates back to I was working in late stage private equity financing, and we were always um, dependent on other companies' leadership, market conditions, this kind of thing. And I was doing a lot of traveling, raising money back in the green tech era, and I bought a book, How to Buy a Business, and I literally would sit on these long flights back and forth from Mexico City or San Francisco or New York, reading this book, trying to piece it together. And that's kind of what the start was. And I kind of felt like
Sure.
I would be more comfortable in life if I had more control over what was going on.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up a great point. You were dependent on others, and there's nothing wrong with it, right? There's nothing right or
Right.
wrong here. You just had a desire to not be dependent on others. It's kind of funny because I run into a lot of people that are like, "Oh, it must be nice to run your own business. You call your own shots, you work your own hours." And I'm like, okay, number one, you don't call your shots because the customer calls the shots. Number two, you
Right.
don't work your own hours because the customer and your team kind of dictate that. So I
Right.
always think it's funny. You got to kind of share with people what the reality is. From your perspective, um, once you started reading that and you got excited about that as a possibility, how did, what was like your next step? How did you determine motorcycles versus a barber shop or a franchise Burger King or something like that? How did you land with the Harley logo and that name?
Well, being from Wisconsin, Harley is ever present. And I had a motorcycle in high school, and I've been riding for a long time. I had a number of friends who were in the Harley space, but actually, I grew up in the car business. My dad ran a car dealership, which is not the same but similar. And then my
Sure.
first job out of college, I worked in a BMW dealer in downtown Chicago called Perillo BMW. I was a sales guy there, right out of college. So I kind of had it in my DNA just to be in the like dealership world. And
Yeah.
there was an interest rate environment. I acquired House of Harley in 2015, and that interest rate environment was super low rates, all-time low rates. And for a small company, and for an entrepreneur looking to make an acquisition, that was a ripe environment to
Sure.
acquire using a number of things like bank financing, seller financing, and SBA financing. So timing was
Sure.
right for that.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think it's really helpful for people listening to know, Jeff, like you just said, there was financing. A lot of people think, well, I don't have a ton of money. grandpa didn't leave me an inheritance or whatever, right? There wasn't
Right.
like an endless supply of money internally from you. You had the SBA, you had the bank, you had different loans, you had to get creative in that. Um, was that like scary for you? I know that can be an issue for certain people, and I'm just curious if it was a risky thing for you.
Yeah, so that was a really important part of this. It's funny, I needed to raise money from an investor, but I was in that business. I worked in the investment business, so I kind of understood the process of raising capital. I
Sure.
needed to raise a fairly substantial down payment from an investor. It's funny. I tell my wife that I owe my life to bass guitar. I was actually looking for an investor and interviewing and having a number of breakfasts and lunches and dinners, talking to a number of people who had all sorts of ideas on how to do it or whether they'd be interested or not.
Yeah.
And then I joined a music school to learn how to play bass guitar, and I ended up playing bass guitar next to a guitar player that ended up being my investor, Charles, great person, and we've often business together and acquired House of Harley.
Oh, and it was already open. So, like you said, it
Yeah.
was 50 years old. So you bought an existing business. Were you like, did you feel comfortable understanding the business side of it, or was that a huge learning curve for you, or what did that look like?
I wasn't comfortable at all. I never really managed a staff. I never had a single employee. I mean,
Yeah,
I worked on a sales team, and I've worked for a number of companies, but I think one of the biggest fears I had was how am I going to have credibility? How is staff going to believe in, what my ideas are? And you know, it took a long time. That was a lot. That was a really uncomfortable area. I read
sure,
number of books. There was a number of books on how to manage change, how to lead change. There's a number of Harvard business. I mean, I just read book after book after book, trying to
sure.
get a handle on it. And as much as you can be as prepared as you think you are, you just have to do it. And
Yeah,
there are uncomfortable moments. There are a lot of days when I'd go into the shop at 6 in the morning, go home at 6 p.m., shower, get ready for the night event, come home at 11, go to sleep, wake up at 1, cross and turn till 6, do it again. I did that for years and years trying to figure it out. And there are a lot of stressful moments and a lot of pressure. But
yeah. Well,
now we're in a good position. It takes some grit for sure.
yeah. Well, and I think that's really helpful for people to know because, like I said, I think we have blind spots thinking it's easy to own a business. You open up these people that have this thought that I'm going to buy, rent the space and I'm going to put a sign up. And as soon as I put a sign up and put a Google listing, that people are just going to flock to your spot, right? There's this,
Yeah.
thought, and nothing could be further from the truth. As I'm sure you're in a really prominent area, well trafficked, where your dealership is. You guys track that, like how many people come through. I mean, you have pretty good metrics on that stuff, don't you?
We do. I mean, we can keep track of sales totals, we can keep track of transaction totals, and we can, compare that to industry or other dealerships in the network, and we can get a pretty good idea of where we're at as far as traffic is. We're a high traffic, high volume location for sure. But
Yeah,
again, you're right. It's you you walk into this situation and every single decision is yours. Every single
yeah,
thing that comes up is your problem or your concern or your issue. And I'm the type of person. I walk in the room, if somebody's struggling with something, I feel it. And so it's a lot. It's definitely a
yeah.
lot.
Well, and I think that's a great thought right there. Your empathy for other people. That word empathy has probably, been more prevalent in the last few years for leadership than ever before. When my dad and your dad were, growing up and were in the business world, empathy wasn't a big deal. I remember my dad would tell me about the boss in the corner office and smoking a
Right.
cigar and the door was always closed and like, don't ever bark at the guy, and he comes out, you're all paranoid. I mean, there's such a shift in what leadership looks like. And that was the boss then, and now it's leadership. So where did you kind of adopt your leadership style? Because you said you were kind of like, wow, I have this team now, and you were reading a bunch of books. How did you like land on the right one that fit for you?
Wow, that's interesting to think about. I think it boils down to this. I was lucky, then I say lucky. I was lucky that I didn't think I had all the best ideas. So
Yeah,
my style was if we had a question on how to do something, I would reach out to the manufacturer and ask them, "Hey, what dealers do you know are really good at this?" And I would reach out to the individual dealer and take my team to that store. I remember taking the team out to a dealer in Detroit to learn about service operations, and we did a number
sure,
of things like that. And I think we just, we do a big rally every year. We were out in Black Hills in South Dakota at the Sturgis rally, meeting executives there to learn how they do their things. And I think keeping an open mind and just making sure you understand you don't have the best ideas. And then how I adopt that into leadership is really simple. You know, as a leader, my job is to make sure that I remove hurdles so that my staff can be successful. And anything I can do to support them or to build them up and to remove hurdles is all I need to worry about. So that's what I try
yeah,
to do. I guess you call that servant leadership is the style
sure,
I tried to
yeah,
adapt.
absolutely. Love that, and, everybody has this org chart in their mind where the leader's at the top and all the people are down below them, and that servant leadership, like you said, you invert that, and all of a sudden, you as the leader,
Right.
you're on the bottom, not in any way other than to support all the people that are on your team. And I think that's it, from the time that number one, I'm a client of yours and very happy and love hanging out at your dealership. It's so evident that that's what you have. I mean, a lot of times when you go into an organization, people, you kind of know who the boss is. People treat him different. He or she treats the team different. When we're, at your dealership there, I can't, if I didn't know you, I wouldn't have a clue what position, and in a real positive way, because there's not an arrogance, there's not an ego there. There's just kind of like, hey, how can I help you? And I'm just curious because that's hard to find. And I'm just curious if there was anybody in your life or anything special that really got you to where you were able to, be at that spot where you're just a common man with the rest of us, I guess.
That was my dad ran a car dealer. He was a sales manager at a car dealership. His guys loved him and he treated them all like family and friends. And he wasn't, I think I kind of watched him. He was also fire chief at Lake Geneva Fire Department. And, his guys looked up to him. He was more of a mentor type versus a
Yeah,
boss. I think the word
yeah.
boss is not, the word boss doesn't really work in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, I mean, you're talking about a servant to the community. So your dad was serving the community. My grandfather was the same way, working in the West Dallas Fire Department, working his way up in that before his untimely death. But I think that there's like a certain feel that you walk into your dealership and there's just a certain feel. People are happier there. It's kind of like I don't know why I think of it, people laugh, but I think of like Norm from Cheers. The guy walked in and everyone's like,
Right.
Norm, and he felt comfortable there. You just make that there. And I was curious, is that from Harley? Is that their desire? Or is that something that is more on your side, or a combination of both? Or where does Harley fit into that, I guess is my question.
I think it is a combination of both. Obviously, it's all about the experience. We sell a very expensive, as you know, product. It's
Yep.
very, and we try to put ourselves out as the VIP experience, and there's a lot of things we do to try to accomplish that. But you know, Harley's definitely directing us toward better experience. If you sell Harley Davidsons and there's another dealer an hour down the road that sells the exact same thing, what are your differentiators? It's how does the customer feel when they come in and how do they feel when they're leaving? And so we try to
Yeah.
focus on that. Try to focus on that.
That's great. And I think it's for people listening, you know, we all think that we're so good that we don't have any competition. And I think that's the interesting thing. You always say that I think there's like twice as many dealers per capita here as there are in other areas. So
Hmm.
me as a Harley enthusiast, I have a plethora of places to choose from.
Right,
So you get like sometimes, Jeff, you get one kick at this, right? If I go to
right.
your dealership and I'm not enjoying the experience, there's four, whatever, three, four, whatever the number is, other places. I may not be back. So do
Right.
you help your team understand that there's like we have one chance at this?
Well, we definitely do. We try to offer services and we try to deliver everything in a better format than the competition. And technically speaking, we're not supposed to view other Harley Davidson dealerships as our competition. We're supposed to view other brands, but it's pretty rare we bump into other brands. And most of it is customer might be shopping a couple different places. So it really boils
Yeah,
down to who are the people, our staff, the people that work with us, my coworkers are phenomenal. And that takes a long time. It takes a long time and it takes a lot of conversations and a lot of meetings and a lot of focus. And my hat's off to the staff because when you walk in and you feel like Norm, that's them. That's
yeah,
their effort and they know what to do.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that Harley brings up a good point. I don't think that it's your your competition isn't necessarily another Harley dealer. I think it might be a boat or a sports car or whatever
Could be.
you're going to spend your discretionary income on.
Right.
Harley
Right.
is just one option. So I think that probably complicates it even more because now you're not only competing with other Harley dealers, other motorcycle dealers, but now you're competing with a Porsche dealer or Duco Marine dealer. You're
Right.
competing with all these people. So
Right.
is your staff aware of that? Do you think is your
They are.
team pretty acutely aware?
They are. Well, when you have something that's not a need, to underscore what you're saying, it is discretionary money and it's people walking in the door, are trying to enjoy their life, and some
Yeah,
people do select a boat or an RV or both, and there
yeah,
is a competition, and so it I think our staff is very aware of that. And they're very aware people have choices, and they're very aware that, it isn't like most there are a few people that rely on their motorcycle for daily transportation. Most people don't. Most people,
right.
it's an enjoyment or a weekend or taking trips. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to tell you an amazing story of what happened to me personally as a customer of House, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about here. So we'll be right back. Awesome. I'm honored to be hanging out with Jeff Binkert. He's the owner, operator, president of the House of Harley here in Milwaukee. And I have had my bike for a long time. And I kept saying to Jeff every time I'd come and see him, I'm like, Jeff, I got to get a new bike. And he would always accommodate and show me what was around. And for whatever reason, it just never fit. And this year it fit. And he's like, hey, take this one out and see what you like, see if this is take a little drive on this thing, see what you like. And so I did that. Well, oddly enough, my old bike, this is how old it was so old that the key had to be actually in the ignition in order for the bike to go. So that's
right,
all I knew. So my this new one,
right,
2024, Jeff says, take this out. Well, smart Dave puts the key in because that's what you're supposed to do. Didn't realize that there were all these other pieces involved in this. So he's out on a ride, stops the bike. As he looks down, he goes, oh my gosh, lost the key. So there I
right,
am. I'm in the middle of nowhere, 7 o'clock at night, and I lost the key. I don't have a backup key. I got nothing, right? So I
right,
immediately text Jeff. And you guys, I am the one who was at fault. I was the one that put the key in. I was the one that lost the key. Jeff's text back to me blew me away. He said, I'm so sorry that we didn't tell you what to do. And I was like blown away by that because I'm expecting this nice job, Dave, dumbass, way to go. I'm
right,
expecting all this. Not that Jeff would do that, but I did a bonehead thing. I didn't
right,
realize that you just didn't need the key. And so he
right,
said that to me, and it made me feel like I was so important at that spot. And I just want to say thank you for that because it would have been super easy for you to come down on me like, yeah, that's not really how this works and blah, blah, blah. You took total responsibility on that piece. And I really think that that separates us in business because you and I talk about this a lot. It's easy to blame a customer, right? It's super easy. It's the easy way out. You shouldn't have did that. You shouldn't have
Right.
did this, whatever, right? Where did you get that? It's all about the customer mentality. How did that come about for you?
It's a great question. I don't know how it came about, but if you add it all up, I'm thinking, how is Dave feeling? Here he is. No one told him to take the key out. Now he doesn't have a key. He can't get the bike started. That's a problem. That's on us. Keys are
Yeah.
replaceable, and I was just thinking like, let me think about where Dave's head is right now. And I just thought, wow, he's stuck and doesn't know how to get the bike started. And now there's probably a fair level of discomfort, embarrassment. And I was just thinking about what's going on in your head. And I think if you just think about what's going on in the other person's head, you're probably better off most of the time. People
Wow. And
walk
that's
in,
yeah.
people walk, go ahead, sorry.
No, finish.
Well, I'd say people walk in the store. I try to, the team knows we don't know what's going on in their world. Something
Yeah.
could have just happened that they don't like, or, they could have just found out a family member is not well or whatever it is. And I think if you just spend some time thinking about what's going on in their head versus your own and focus on that, that's, I think, what we all try to do at the store. So,
Yeah. And that's that back to empathy. I mean, that was so because you're exactly right, Jeff. Here I am with my wife on the back. She's on the back because we're trying to see how this works for two people and get
right,
comfortable. And here we are, probably 20 minutes from home, not the end of the world. And I'm already thinking like I'm gonna have my tail between my legs. I'm gonna have Jeff, come and pick up his bike. And I'm
right,
feeling like you said it's ruining my night. It's supposed to be a
right.
great experience. I'm supposed to be super excited, and all of a sudden something happened that just, screwed that up. So
Yeah.
you go
Dark,
ahead and send me
dark cloud over, right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't even want to text you because I'm like, okay, number one, it's after hours. Number two, this dude's got a life of his own. He doesn't need to be hearing from me. Now I got to deliver him bad news. It's not like, hey, I love the bike, I'm buying it. It's like, hey, I screwed this up. And I absolutely loved your response because it was like, man, and I showed it to my wife, and I'm like, this is why we work with this dealer, is because you know what? He could have easily busted my chops. He took responsibility. Then you went ahead and screenshot how to start it with the code, and like there it is. And I tell you, nothing felt better that day, Jeff, when that code worked and that bike started right up. I'm
looks like a
like you
champ.
said, I can easily replace the key. Just let me know what I owe you. It's super easy. But yet I'm like riding this home and I'm like, oh my gosh, this felt so much better than
Right.
stuck down there.
That's what I
And
remember your response back was, "Hey, it worked. This is awesome." And I'm thinking, that's good, so
exactly, exactly. And I just think that right now, like you said, customer experience is becoming more and more of an important deal. And I'll never forget the first time we met. I was speaking at an event and you brought a bunch of your people and we were talking about how to improve your customers' experience. And I love that because most of the people in this world are not really worried about their team getting better. They're just, hey, just get by. The team's like, yeah, I'm just here. I'm existing. I'm here for a paycheck. It's easy to say, not my job. I mean, I love walking around your dealership and asking questions about something. And now I try to do it like to try to trip people up just to try to keep them on their A game. And they're like, man, great question. Let me go get that answer for you. And
right.
that's just so powerful. Whatever you're doing is just it's permeating the rest of the team. And so I just want you to know that it's visible. And I'm assuming your sales kind of align with that the better experience, people are coming back and you're gaining your following. And I just
Def
love that.
Definitely. And I have to thank you. I met you early on, and you were one of the guys that opened my eyes to the details surrounding customer experience. And I think you're one of the I can probably count on one hand a few of the earlier mentors in the business as far as the customer experience went. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. That's awesome. Hey, I want to, as we start to land today, I want to kind of talk about your gratitude foundation because I love the fact that, it's one thing for an entrepreneur, it's one thing for a business owner to build a successful business and then kind of hoard it all to themselves. It's completely different when you then build that business and then you're able to give back. So, what is the gratitude foundation that you started?
So gratitude was we do a lot of I guess you call it charity work or fundraising for organizations that can't take direct checks. So I'll give you an example. We did a big fundraiser for Milwaukee Fire Department, and they have training called RIT training. It's a very intense training that takes place down at University of Illinois at the fire training school there at Illinois Fire Safety Institute. And we said we want to donate and get money in your hands for this. They said we can't accept it unless you're a charity, so you can't give direct capital. So we set up
Sure.
gratitude to allow a conduit that we don't take salaries or expenses out of it. It just goes into gratitude and directly to things like that. So really it was set up as a vehicle to allow fundraising to happen for groups like that, and we make donations to groups like the Fire Bells, another great organization, mostly related to uh, first responders, police, fire, military, things like that. And really just all those people that require a big thank you, why we named it
Yeah.
gratitude.
Wow. And you have, if I don't remember the number, so remind me how many police forces work with you guys on their bikes.
So for the motorcycles, we sell and service and like do the setups of the electronics and lights for over 20 departments all around the area. We've worked as far as Green Bay, Madison, State Police, Milwaukee County, Kenosha, Racine, a lot of departments in the area, New Berlin. I'm sure I'm missing a
Sure.
few, Walworth County, but we've taken on that uh, we've really taken that on, and they've become great friends of ours, and anything we can do to support law enforcement. They've had it pretty rough the last few years.
Yeah.
When I was a kid growing up, the thought of violence against a police officer was unheard of. And I've been out to the Washington D.C. Police Week where you're literally at the National Mall and it's a funeral for hundreds of police officers that died in the line of duty. It's almost unbelievable. And
Yeah.
we really thank them for keeping us safe. And I think you know we really like having them around the dealership, and we like doing all we can to make it easy for them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, when we were growing up, man, the only thing I would do is run from the cops, right? I couldn't
Right.
imagine in my wildest dreams like hitting them. I mean, what throwing it. I mean, just like all we wanted to do was run, right? And now
That's
they've
right.
been so pegged is so negative. Um, I don't know. It's yeah, yeah, that we could easily go down those roads. I'm so appreciative that my dealer, that part of the money, and I guess this isn't even the right way to look at it, but part of the money that I give you guys then forward to to nonprofits. And I think that that's such a powerful statement to think about the people that you fund in your personal life. Where does that money go? I mean, I
Right.
love that part of it goes to the cops, part of it goes to the fire and first responders, and that just speaks volumes when you're out and about in your business. Has that been a good partnership for the dealership as well?
I think so. And a lot of the police officers, for example, or firemen that are, involved with us through some of our either our business or our charity work, they all ride their personal bikes. And we do a number. We have upcoming law enforcement ride coming up in a couple weeks, and we have the fire department's, firefighter support ride. And you know they become friends, family. We host a number of events. We did the Milwaukee local 215 uh, fundraiser Packer party at the dealership last year. We did a retirement party, and we just get to be. I personally think that growing up in a I don't need to tell you, growing up in a house where your father was a firefighter,
Yeah.
it kind of makes it all make sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's different because your customers, like, again, we always have to think of customers, right? You have all these customers and firemen, it's like everybody. And the sad thing is that a lot of people aren't even appreciative of it. So on top of the sacrifice you have to make, you have to fight through the fact that they're not even appreciative of what you're doing. And so I just never understood why not being appreciative. I never understood why that is. Every time that I'm involved with any officers, anybody, I'm like, thank you guys so much for what you do, and
They
I
keep us
just,
alive and keep us safe.
gosh, exactly. And it's just like, why
Yeah.
would you not? I mean, it doesn't even make sense. But um, I have a couple more questions, Jeff, and I'm gonna let you go. So you alluded to you with a bass guitar. So you are, I love that. I'm so jealous because I am not musically inclined. My music inclination stopped in second grade when I did the recorder, and I did Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's all I could
Right.
do. So
Right.
how did you get involved in the music side for yourself?
It was funny. I've always kind of, when I listen to music, I just like the sound of bass guitar, and I've always wanted
Yeah.
to do it. I think I was 42 when I started,
Okay.
and what do you do when you're a busy guy? You have to look on your watch and say, where am I going to get time to do this? So I stopped watching TV, and that was
Yeah.
an easy one. There's an
Yeah.
extra hour or two a day for most people, so that was
Sure.
that was an easy way to make time for it. And 10 years later, I'm in a couple bands having fun, and it's great.
What bands? I didn't even know. Tried to find what bands you were in.
We're not touring or opening for any major artists, so they're no name bands, but at this point, but just fun
Well, come
projects,
on, they
get
play
together.
local stuff. What are
As
you
soon
not
as we get
sharing? Hey, if you don't want to share.
the next show we have, you're invited, and we'll have
Uh-oh.
motorcycle parking for your street glide right in front.
That's awesome. So cool. So you are enjoying the bass part. Is that's your jam, that's your instrument then?
Yeah, I don't. Some people think like, well, you're a CEO, you're a boss. How come you don't want to be out on the mic or out on the guitar? I find sitting in back just holding things down. It's kind of like the way I am. So
Oh my gosh,
that's it.
that's so cool. Awesome. One last question, I'm gonna let you go. So tell me, tip of the day for you. Somebody's listening and they've really enjoyed getting to know you, and I want you to leave them with what's one thing that is a tip for you. Maybe it's something you learned, maybe it's something we talked about, maybe it's something we didn't, but what would your tip of the day be for somebody listening, Jeff?
Uh, as far as if it's related to going into business, I would tell people take a chance. Take a chance and go forward. There's going to be a lot of negative feelings and a lot of worry, but you have to take a chance.
Yeah.
Follow your dream, and do it. If you don't do it, you'll never see. It's worth it.
Yeah. Man, I don't know if you're a classic rock fan, but Pink Floyd says, 10
Yeah,
years got behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun, right? And
that's right.
man, I see that so often where people are like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to clean this up and then I'm going to do that. There's always something you're going to do and then you're going to do something. So, from a
Right.
local business owner, he's just sharing with you, you know what? Take a risk. Maybe there's 5 steps to get there. Just take the first step you
Take the
know
first
and
step.
and you started reading. That's how he read. He just started reading, and that vision slowly probably started to crystallize for you, I'm guessing.
That's right. That's right. There are lots of books. Get out if you're driving on your job now, or you're in the car, windshield time, get Audible. Download
Yeah,
books. There's hundreds of great books.
that's awesome. Cool. So Jeff, if somebody wants to learn more about you or learn more about the dealership, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
They can connect directly with me. I'll leave my email. It's jeff@houseofharley.com. Jeff at houseofharley.com. Feel free to reach out. Happy to help anybody involved with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. I tell you what, it's great to know that in your foxhole, there's certain people that you can always go to. You've always been the guy that I'm like, hey, what do I do with this bike? And you'd always have something to do with telling me how to fix it or how to do it. So now I got a brand new one, doesn't need any service, but you know what? I can't wait tell others and tell more people. And again, thank you for all you're doing with the Gratitude Foundation. Thank you for a great workplace that you're creating and providing for people. And can't wait to keep learning from you, my friend.
Same here, Dave. Thank you for everything you've done for us as well. I know the whole team is really proud to have you in working with us on a number of our customer service initiatives. And I thank you for inviting me to this podcast.
Absolutely.